Hey, it's Elizabeth from Living Vibrantly, and I am back with the final installment. It turns out this is part 4 of my exercises for diastasis recti, or abdominal separation. And more accurately, I should say these are not exercises. Like when I say my exercises, I don't mean that I invented them. These are the exercises I was given by my physical therapist. So, just know that this is not a substitution for going to a physical therapist. If you have this issue, you should definitely be seen and get exercises specifically for you and your situation. But this may be helpful as a supplement or for you to start to understand abdominal separation, or to help you understand your condition better and what may be done for it, what is possible to do for it. So I'm going to show you the last set of exercises I was given. When I say I graduated, it doesn't mean I get to stop doing the exercises. I actually am supposed to keep doing them every single day. Kind of a bummer, right? Like we want to be like, oh, you're all better, you're fixed. But it's a condition that requires lifelong maintenance because there's a structural deficiency in your body, and I guess that's something I'm still getting used to, but I would rather do these exercises on a daily basis than deal with complications and discomfort and weakness and injury. If that's the alternative, it's a pretty easy decision to do the exercises, right? So what I'll be showing you, the 3 exercises I was given to continue are, there's a bird dog, which is a common exercise move, but I'll show you and tell you what to focus on specifically with reference to abdominal separation. There's a plank move and a side plank. Again, these are really common in exercise, but that's kind of the goal, that at the beginning of physical therapy for this condition, you're doing really tiny movements and working on activating and isolating specific muscles. And then once you learn to locate those muscles and access them, then you move on to incorporating those muscles into bigger, complex movements, the kind of movements you might do in everyday life as part of, lifting or, walking, different sports, getting in and out of the car, just everyday activities where you don't want to injure yourself, or you don't want to end up hurting your back because your abdominal muscles are weak, things like that. So it's actually a good thing that I've graduated to these workout moves that I've kind of been doing for years, but I didn't, since my surgery and since having abdominal separation, I haven't really known how to do them correctly until now. So throughout the 4 videos, I had learned first to isolate the transverse abdominis, that low muscle where, if you think about pulling in your abdomen for, or pulling in your lower abdomen to button a pair of tight jeans, that's that muscle. And you can contract it all by itself. So that was one of the first things my physical therapist had me work on, and then I incorporate that into many different moves. Then the second thing that I learned was how to contract the pelvic floor, Kegel exercises. Still working on that. I used biofeedback in the physical therapy office, and actually I'm looking at purchasing a device that I could use at home. And you attach electrodes to your inner leg, and then the device can actually pick up the electrical impulses of whether you're activating the pelvic floor and how strongly. And you look at how the overall strength, and then how long you're able to hold it. And I found it very effective to be able to see those contractions on screen. So the devices are around $200. Looking at probably purchasing one. But once you learn to isolate that pelvic floor activation, then you can incorporate it into other movements too. So there's a whole sequence I'm not going to show you because you can't really see it, but I'll tell you. And if you want more explanation of any of these, go back to my earlier videos, parts 1 through 3. But so there's a movement called the pelvic brace, which is a combination of pelvic floor activation and transverse abdominis contraction. And the way it was described to me, it's an accessory breathing muscle. So, for example, I mean, it helps the activity of the lungs, and it can help prevent things like a prolapsed uterus. So, like when you cough, things are kind of squeezing out the bottom end, right? It can happen. So, if you contract instead, then it's helping you, it's helping hold things in and helping you cough more strongly, to cough up whatever it is, right? So this is a very practical, what do you call it? It's not really a movement activity. I don't know, but the pelvic brace is very practical. So then you practice just doing it with the electrodes, or, you know, you start to be able to feel when you're doing it, but the electrodes are more effective, I think, biofeedback. So then you do the pelvic brace sitting to standing, bending over and picking something up, walking, going up and down stairs. So you see if you can maintain it while you're doing these other movements, like walking and chewing gum at the same time, right? And then next is some exercise movements. So squats, lunges, and lifting a heavier object while keeping that pelvic brace in place. So I'm just mentioning all of this because this action, the pelvic brace, is something that you can bring into the exercises that I'm about to show you. And when your rectus abdominis is compromised, which is what diastasis recti is, then you know, you're not able to stabilize as much here. You don't have as much control, depending on how large your separation is. But so then you need to bring in other accessory muscles to help you achieve stability. Like when you're moving your legs, you want to keep your core stable, things like that. So, so this pelvic brace is important for the movements I am about to show you and for many different types of movement. All right, so let's get to the 3 exercises. So in the last video, I did a tabletop position, extending one leg back. Now, this time, I'm going to show you bird dog, which is the same, except I'm going to lift an arm as well as my leg. So what is really helpful to do, I found, is to take something, I'm using just a pad of Post-it notes, and place it on the back of my pelvis. It's like right at the waistband. These are kind of low-waisted leggings. And then it's actually harder than I expected, but I have to make sure that doesn't move. Back to make space. Make sure that doesn't move or fall off as I'm doing this. So in the last video I talked in more detail, but I'll just go over it really quickly. In this one, it's important not to overtuck and not to tilt the pelvis forward, ouch, that hurts my low back, but to maintain a neutral spine throughout. So I was really overtucking in the physical therapy office. She noticed I was like really trying to do this and tuck my tailbone. And instead, to activate those deep core muscles, it's better to keep the spine neutral. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Hopefully the notepad doesn't fall off while I'm demonstrating, but this is a hard one for me, I'll be honest. So I'm going to extend one leg back and the opposite arm forward while keeping that neutral pelvis, trying to keep my torso position basically the same. And come down, and you can do this slowly and really feel what's happening with whatever you're balancing on your back. Opposite leg, opposite arm, keeping the pelvis level. And that's it. So I could see my pelvis tilting a little bit because you could see more of that yellow, but it wasn't too bad because it didn't fall off. So do 10 of those. So what I just showed you was one rep, do 10. That's something to do daily. And then elbow plank. So again, it's that neutral, so not overtucking and not collapsing the low back, neutral, and you can bring that rectus abdominis activation, pelvic floor activation to help stabilize here. And then once that gets easy, you can put your toes up on a ball and then do a regular plank instead of an elbow plank. Still working on balance. So kind of the more directions you have to stabilize in, the more challenging it becomes. And the important thing now that I've really learned to work with is when you start to work on this type of exercises, when you have an abdominal separation, you'll start to be able to feel when the pressure is too much and it's starting to bulge here, or when you're losing control of what your rectus abdominis is doing. So the rectus abdominis can contract in together, or it can contract bulging forward. And you know, there are certain types of movement where it's a lot harder to control, like a crunch. So that's why I don't do crunches unless I have that sheet and I can do a very small controlled crunch. But otherwise, it's just too much pressure. Go back to video 1 if you don't know what I mean by the sheet. But for other types of movement, I can feel how that muscle is moving, like, you know, a V-sit. Sometimes I feel it start to bulge and I just stop what I'm doing and kind of reset, go back to neutral, let the muscle relax and get that long lengthening feeling back before I do another contraction. So there are different types of abdominal, well, not different types of abdominal separation, but each case is different. You know, there will be bigger or smaller, obviously, different location. And, you know, both muscles could be pulling evenly to the side, or one could be weaker, one could be stronger. And obviously it could be one side, it could be the other side. Sometimes it happens because of a C-section. If you have a scar down there, I have this diagonal scar as well as the C-section type scar. So, there's actually some adhesions that prevent my muscles from moving the way that they normally would. So whatever your situation is, you just need to, I mean, I recommend seeing a physical therapist who can give you recommendations specifically for you, but just know that each situation and each case is different. So it requires sometimes some experimentation for, you know, what things feel like in your body and, you know, what seems to cause issues for you. It might not be the same as for me. So the last exercise is a side plank. And by the way, for the plank, a 30-second hold is recommended. Same for the side plank. You can do an elbow plank, and just gonna take this off so I can see my 30 seconds. So starting lying on your side with the elbow down, and just pick the hips up and look for your body to make a straight line, and then make sure you're not turning your chest too much toward the floor or too much up, but really the side of your body should be facing the floor, and shoulder over your elbow. I think I'm there. It's hard for me to see because I'm sideways. And then hold this for 30 seconds. And of course I didn't look at my starting time, so much for that. But again, you know, it's possible to come up too high. It's more challenging in the right spots when your body is a straight line. Feeling it all along here. And here in this position too, I'm activating the transverse abdominis, pelvic floor to get that pelvic brace and help with the stability. So that's it. Those are the exercises that I will be continuing to do. And with the biofeedback pelvic floor contractions as well. If you have any questions about abdominal separation or about any of the exercises I've shown you in any of the videos, shoot me an email and I will answer them as best I can. Thanks for watching.